Happy 4th of July, y'all. Welcome back to Basin Motorsports, and today we're on a road trip. So I've got my festive 4th of July hat on, and we are going to Metalworks Speed Shop over in Eugene, Oregon. It's about 180 miles, about 3 hours or so, including a rest stop, and I've had to stop and put wipers on the car because it's raining. So this morning I got out of the house about 6:15, got my chores all done, I'm caught up for the day, and it's going to be a day off for a drive. So we're about, somewhere 100, 120 miles into it. Stopped to get a little gas, and it's been a lonely road out on the highways. So right now I am sitting in Oak Ridge, and I've stopped to go to the bathroom, and we're going to get back on the road and get over to Metalworks. So when I got to Metalworks, I was able to get a spot literally out front of their driveway. So they had blocked off the, I guess you'd call it the parking way or whatever, between both buildings. They had two buildings that faced each other with garage doors. So they blocked that off with cones, and immediately the first thing you see when you walk in, they had 4 vehicles sitting up there. 2 were, I guess, a second generation Corvette, the blue one. And then they had like a white, I want to say maybe an Impala sitting there also. Now after looking at them, first thing I went to the right into one of their buildings. Now inside of this building, this was, I want to say it's their secondary building because it's not where their showroom is and some other things. So in this building they had a blue Cougar, I believe it was a Cougar that was being painted. Not sure the color code on it, but it looks kind of like maybe a Kona blue or something like that, but was a very, very nice paint job being done in the booth. Now next to this, they had a fastback, Mustang Fastback that was being put in, had a Detroit Speed front subframe in it, also had an LSA blower on top of an LS swap. So really kind of an interesting car. And I overheard one of their bodywork managers that said that he knew this is their second one they did. The first one he said was an insane build that they did, and it turned out very, very well. Next to it was a Continental, again with an LSA engine in it with the blower on it. A lot of metal work going on there to make all that fit, but it was coming out really nice. They had an older Ford in there that had hit a deer that they were restoring. They had a C10 truck in there that had a blown 502 in it that was for sale, 65 grand. I was like, wow, not sure how I could ever afford that, but it was a fantastically beautiful car or a truck. And then they also had another one in there they were working on gaps and metal on. Now once I left that other building, I went to what I'd say is their main building. It has their showroom for parts. It has some of their other builds in there. And in the third building, I guess you would call it, they had more. So they had a small showroom setup that they actually had kind of like a parts department really. They do over-the-counter retail sales of most things. So they had a lot of vintage air fittings. They had, you name it, pretty much. They had some radiators, some coolers, I would say small accessory parts, probably the hard to find stuff, but it all fits to going to build custom cars from the ground up. Now these guys, I looked at one of their signs, and at Metalworks they believe they want to do the whole package. They believe they can do everything themselves. So they do metal work, they do custom work there, they get cars acid dipped, and they do of course paint, as you saw with the Cougar in the bay. They do final assembly. And they also do a lot of magazine cars, which I would say are probably $50,000 to $100,000 to build based on what I saw. Some of my favorite ones there were a couple of the early model Corvettes, which is going to be, which is in building 2. They also had a Tri-5 there that was sinister black. It was a pro touring build they were doing. A lot of the trim was done in Cerakote. So it was kind of like a flat or a matte, satiny, kind of a dull black. And then the paint on it was a mix of, it looked like maybe a gloss black on the bottom and probably like a satin black on the top, something like that. It wasn't like overly matte finish, like dull, but it wasn't gloss either. So I'm gonna say it was satin. Now they did also have a yard there that had a lot of parking, and of course for this they had set up pallets of stuff, just old parts that they had taken off of other builds. So they had a lot of older truck stuff like C10 stuff. They had Camaro, Impala, anything GM. Really looks like they are very heavy into the LS swaps. They love the LSAs. They had a pallet of just LS oil pans. Just I don't know how many were there, but it was a mountain of engine oil pans that they probably had to switch out for a lower profile or different things to fit in the first generation Camaros and some of those other ones. Now there was something there that I thought, man, if I had the money for that, I would probably approach them and ask how much it was. And it was a 427 Windsor with an Edelbrock Pro Flow 4 sitting on the floor. It made over 500 horsepower, didn't have a price on it, and thankfully I was in the WideFox, so I couldn't take it home anyway, and I surely didn't need to spend that kind of money. I would bet it was probably about $10,000 at least sitting there on the floor. But I tell you what, 500 horsepower in this car would probably be scary as hell. Now after I was there for probably about an hour, I decided I was pretty much done looking around. So I left. I went and got some lunch. I went and got some Panda Express there in Eugene. And I tell you what, I've always had this rule, I was not gonna eat in my show car. Well, guess what? I ate in the show car. So anyway, that was fine. I didn't spill anything, thank goodness. That's one of my biggest fears, is I'm gonna get in there and stain up my seats eating Chinese food or something. But it didn't happen, it was great. Now the trip back, of course I found rain again coming up over Oregon 58 up towards Willamette Pass. There was probably a good 20-mile section of heavy rain. And I tell you what, the front tires on the WideFox, being that they're 315s wide, in the dry, they will find those grooves left by the semis, right? You get those kind of those grooves, I guess you would call them, in the road. Well, imagine these big skis trying to use those and then finding intermittent deep water. There was a couple moments in there that was white knuckle brown pant, and I think I might have squeaked a little pee. This thing is terrible in the wet. So point being, I'm not going to try and drive this thing through rain anymore. Wow, bad day for that, and we got it home. I had to go 45 miles an hour, but we made it. So okay for that, and now it definitely needs to be wiped down because it is flat dirty. So beyond the rain, otherwise the drive was very good. Probably put about 380 miles or so on it today alone, and it was very, very good. Car ran consistent, which, you know what, that right there makes the drive even better. Consistent temperature on the gauge, consistent oil pressure, had no issues with anything, and I tell you what, that makes a Fox body pretty darn good in my book. No air conditioning, so of course it was a little hot, had to ride with the window down. The old 165 AC, you know, one window, 65 miles an hour, you get it. But otherwise it was great. So now that I had kind of a goof off day in there, it's back to work this week. Next project here is to try and get the Gray Lady back up and running. Everything else is pretty cleaned out. You can see in there, I've got the K member all cleaned up. And of course, a little bit of grunge there on the lower control arms, but that's how they are. Everything else on the Gray Lady looks very good, very consistent. No real rust in there, which is fantastic. It's all wiped down, very good, clean. K-members put back in, and now I need to work on getting probably the steering gear, which is there, put back in, and then get the engine and transmission bolted together and get it back down in here so that it goes in. And then start buttoning it up to start. So thanks for riding shotgun with me today over to Eugene to go to Metalworks for their open house and swap meet. Hopefully we'll get a couple more of these in this year. Some good road trips, maybe even just day trips. Just going somewhere to get some miles on the wide body and just enjoy getting the car driven. So that's it. We'll see you next time from Basin Motorsports.